Hello, dear friends. This news could be the fall of the world's first domino. The second could be China. What would be the third one? Opinion piece. Turkey goes bankrupt. Istanbul closed its stock exchange. Disintegration of the lira. First domino. Inflation of 30% expected. The lira loses half its value. Istanbul Stock Exchange reopens. Libertarian ideas in the crypto markets. Economist announces the extinction of Bitcoin. Spanish lorry drivers call off their strike. European inflation soars to its highest level ever. Corporate insolvencies hit new highs. Central banks accelerate their stimulus withdrawals. Mexico asks companies not to abuse prices. Gold price could be manipulated by central banks. Let's start. The Istanbul Stock Exchange halted its activities due to a plunge in the Turkish lira, which in its fall surpassed the psychological mark of $17 per lira. The stoppage, which lasted an hour, came after an automatic alarm system was triggered when the main index exceeded a critical value. The Turkish Stock Exchange halted trading in the face of the falling lira and suspended trading after the national currency fell below 70 lira to the dollar on Friday. The lira has lost more than half its value against the dollar since the beginning of 2021. Turkey halted all stock market trading as its currency, the Turkish lira, disintegrated, and the central bank is powerless to stop the collapse as the cryptocurrency implodes. President Erdogan has finally had enough of the relentless pounding and is beginning to shut down Turkey's markets. The country's currency collapsed amid President Erdogan's pressure on the central bank to reduce borrowing costs to boost growth in Turkey's struggling economy. On Thursday, the Turkish central bank announced it would cut the key interest rate from 15% to 14%, despite inflation at 21%. Since September, the central bank has cut their key interest rate by 400 basis points. Over the past 2 years, the regulator has intervened 3 times to keep the lira afloat by selling dollars. The state monetary policy, together with the significant depreciation of the lira, will further affect inflation. It is expected to soar 30% year-on-year by early 2022. On Friday, the Turkish lira accelerated its historic decline, weakening for the first time beyond the 16 per dollar mark, as the central bank pledged on Thursday to end a 4-month cycle of interest rate cuts, but failed to convince investors that inflation can be brought under control. However, that would be just the beginning, and the currency's slide accelerated, falling as low as 17.14 to the dollar just hours later, bringing its fall this week to 70%. Erdogan responded to the economic pain caused by rising prices by ordering a 50% increase in the minimum wage next year, guaranteeing even more inflation as it will increase production costs that will cause inflation to accelerate by 2 to 8% next year, according to Erkin Isik, chief economist at QNB Finance Bank. Reset news. First, the global financial reset would have started last January 2021, and right now would be in the final stage of implementation. Second one, martial law would have been in effect since November 2nd, 2020. Third one, since January 2021, a 10-meter fence has been installed around the capital. Fourth, At midnight on December 15th, 2021, the U.S. Inc. corporation would have been officially bankrupt, according to Supreme Court Justice Thomas. This bankruptcy reversed the 1871 Act of England, which allowed the U.S. to move from the Maritime Act to the common law of 1776. Fifth, they would be bankrupting the three cooperative city-states, Washington D.C., the Vatican, and the City of London, which have had control over money since they started their monetary system. Sixth, African High Cardinal resigns. Cardinal Peter Turkson, considered by some to be a candidate to become the first African Pope in some 1,500 years, offered his sudden resignation to the Vatican. 7. Prominent bishops, priests, and lay people signed the Bethlehem Declaration, opposing the official version of the crisis. 8. Wall Street ends a mostly negative week, weighted down by big tech, as investors digest the Fed decision to end its crisis stimulus faster. 9. Central banks accelerate their stimulus withdrawal. Financial policy makers are too worried about high inflation to start reversing crisis stimulus now. 10. 20 million Americans left their jobs. The phenomenon is spreading to some European countries and is even affecting other American countries. Inflation. 11. Temporary or transitionary inflation has changed to persistent, according to the head of the Fed. 12. European inflation soars to 30-year high. Annual consumer inflation in 19 European states rose last month to a record 4.9% from 4.1% the previous month. 13. Business insolvencies hit new highs. Business insolvencies in England and Wales rose last month to their highest level since January 2019, surpassing pre-crisis level for the first time. 14. Mexico asks companies not to abuse prices amid high inflation. President AMLO said Friday that his administration had talked with one of the country's main business associations to persuade companies not to raise prices in the face of high inflation. 15. Mexico's migration crisis is a humanitarian tragedy. Migrants suffer all kinds of violence, while containment policy is insufficient. An accident with dozens of people died and the police repression rekindled the debate in Mexico on the growing migratory crisis that has mutated into a humanitarian tragedy with no solution in sight in the short term. Supply crisis. Ukraine faces heating cuts. Several regions of Ukraine are facing heating cuts due to very low fuel reserves in thermal power plants. 17. Russia may toughen stance on NATO. The Kremlin may take new measures to ensure its security, in case the US and its allies continue to take actions and ignore Moscow's demand for guarantees preventing NATO from joining Ukraine, a senior Russian diplomat warned on 18th December. 18. The energy crisis just got worse. In addition to the current shortage of natural gas, Europe is facing the winter season with reduced nuclear production in France, exacerbating the energy crisis and leaving much of the continent praying for a milder winter. 19. London underground strike continues this weekend, with severe disruption of 5 tube lines. Another conveniently timed transport shutdown, I ask. 20. Singapore government raises alert level over critical Log4j software bug. Spain. 21. The only good news appears in Spain. Spanish carriers call off the strike that threatens Christmas supplies, which they had scheduled from December 20 to 22 after reaching an agreement with the government. Pilot test of the basic income. Catalonia will give 900 euros to 5,000 people. The plan of the Generalitat will start at the end of 2022 and will affect the residents of 2 or 3 municipalities of the autonomous community. The aid will be spread over 24 months. The average price of electricity on the wholesale market reached almost 110 euros per megawatt hour on Friday 17th December, setting a new all-time record for the third consecutive day. Financial reset. 24. In 2008, the BRICS were formed under 209 nation alliance to make a global financial reset and put their currencies on par with each other in order to save the world from financial disaster. 25. To participate in the restart, all nations had to agree to Giscard's condition whereby they would become sovereign and function under the concepts of their original constitution. 26. The US Army is keeping secret the timetable of the financial reset, which could be in charge of activating under coalition authority. It would be the biggest stock market crash the planet has ever seen, and it would be done with cybernetic precision. 27. JFK assassination files released. The National Archives has released 1,500 documents related to the government's investigation into the 1963 Dallas assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. The release of the documents has been welcomed by those who deny that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. 28. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talks about his uncle's assassination and says he believes it was not a lone gunman. Along to writer David Lifshult, the assassination was carried out by professional Corsican marksmen, as they would be considered neutral rather than a Sicilian assassin. Gold encrypted. 29. Something is wrong with gold. A recent study suggests that iconic Lego toys, Lego, would be a better investment than gold. This indicates that something is very wrong with the most precious asset that once was, as well as with the entire world economy. According to Max Kaiser, this phenomenon is happening because of the factual fact that gold currently brings no economic benefit, as it has been in negative 3% for more than 10 years. The central banks destroyed the gold price indicators and appropriated most of that metal, just as they did with bonds. 30. And last one. The Bitcoin might not last much longer, warned an expert economist. Economist Eswar Prasad, professor at Cornell University, USA, warns that the Bitcoin would not be very effective and might not last much longer. In addition to its price volatility, there are other cryptocurrencies today that are more useful and environmentally friendly. He adds that the real legacy of Bitcoin itself wouldn't be its role as a digital currency, but rather the underlying blockchain technology. Stock market plunge. According to the Atlantis report, the stock market rally has its days numbered, and the substantial declines seen in recent weeks suggest that the catalyst for an epic crisis could be rising inflation. In normal times, such measures could cause serious economic damage, but these are not normal times. These are crazy times, and the stakes have never been higher. For months, market insiders have been warning that we could be in the biggest stock market bubble in history. And now that the bursting has begun, the situation is particularly precarious. The technology sector has already witnessed heavy losses, but the collapse was becoming widespread just before the market closed on Friday. Analysts, pundits, economists, and investors have long been sounding the alarm about the sudden explosive stock market collapse that would wipe out billions in profits overnight. And although the collapse of the bubble has already begun, we are still listening to the silence. Optimism would be blinding some investors who do not realize that the main support that drove the market up over the last 2 years to support economic expansion and growth will no longer be there. The risk of disaster would be high, and so would be the price to pay for being blind to the dangers. Gold price. Central banks are bracing for an inflationary decade, according to Palisades Gold Radio. Gold prices are struggling after hitting new highs in 2020. Gold's recent history appears to be one of consolidation. The year-over-year CPI is showing that gold is keeping up with inflation and would break out in the end. Gold was ahead of inflation expectations, but we should see a higher low soon. This appears to be the beginning of an inflationary decade. Crypto markets are parallel world built on libertarian ideals. Central banks and governments would have to return to some sort of anchor. Gold would fit that role probably. Cryptocurrency are here to stay, but their impact on the economic system remains uncertain. We will see an evolution, and it is important to separate technical benefits from rampant speculation. In the end, metals and commodities will lead the market. There are signs that the change is coming in the markets in general. The US and China are the global engines of growth. China currently has several commodity-related problems due to rising prices and has a massive level of debt similar to other developed countries, or perhaps more. First contact. Message about first contact by Sierra. Other things have to happen before first contact, because if it happened now, it would be too chaotic, but it will happen in the future. If the Great Revelation were to happen now, there wouldn't be enough people ready. First, we would have to be shaken up, and we would have to let go of everything that didn't serve us. Then realign, and then more people would be ready. There are more steps before first contact. Those who are ready would have more sightings, which only they could see. When the blockade arrived in New Zealand in April 2020, the number of sightings dropped drastically because the planet's energy is too heavy. They can't lower the frequency enough to reach Earth. It hurts them to get too close to Earth. But after the reorganization, things will clear up and people will release much of the heaviness. After the heaviness on Earth has dissipated, we will begin to make contact with our galactic brothers and sisters. I have long looked forward to that glorious moment. Carlos Castaneda, in quotes, a warrior must cultivate the feeling that he has everything he needs for the extravagant journey that is his life. What counts for a warrior is to be alive. Life itself is sufficient, self-explanatory and complete. Therefore, it can be said without boasting that the experience of living is to be alive. Power and Unconditional Love by Bonnie. Your power is so strong that everything you believe comes true. You are the way you are, because that is what you believe about yourself. Your whole reality, everything you believe, is in your creation. Your heart is an electromagnetic field generator. Your body is a spaceship. Your pineal gland is the steering wheel. Your unconditional love is the key to enter to the higher dimensions. Birds of Paradise by James O'Brien. The storm that is coming is an energetic wave that will sweep all of humankind as collective in one sweep, all of humanity as a collective at the same moment, because no one in the boat can predict its exact timing of what the experience will be like when it arrives. We can only prepare our boats to ride the wave. If you have done the work, you will embrace the energies and not fight them, and perhaps even enjoy them very much. Others might struggle with tremendous fear. Others could be surprised, but would quickly adapt. Many will be like the lead ships of a fleet, and will be the first to stop, land, and guide others in the right direction. All true direction comes from within. We are energetic beings, so even if there has been manipulation within the system, there is nothing that cannot be transmuted in an instant if the healing energy is of a high enough order and aligned with source. Never forget who wins this chess game of dark to light. God wins every time. The markers are not there for you to see appointments and obsess over time frames, but to let you know that there has always been a destination and it is inevitable. The ships of old sailed by the constellations, and that is still an effective technique. Hence the significance of 12-21-21. No one sails forever in a ship of discovery. Neither you capsize or you eventually find land. There are some whose ships will not make it through this energetic storm. The old wineskins must dissolve and make way for new wine. No one, in quotes, no one would pour new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the wine would break the wineskins, and both the wine and the wineskins would be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, says the gospel. An emergency transmission system would not serve its purpose without the new consciousness that this energetic change would bring. To some, it would seem like an hostile takeover from one side. However, with the energetic shift, the world would see things in a new light. In fact, it would be like a light switch suddenly turning on from within for many people. In quotes again, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorrigible, and we shall be changed, says the gospel. This is not something to wait for. Just be prepared for it whenever it comes. At the very least, you would prepare for the transformation which you know for certain is coming. You also know that it is not the end, but another beginning. In the new world, individuals will consciously and intentionally transform themselves. They may even make it a party with friends and loved ones, as a celebration of life lived in that time frame. And yet, I tell you, we have not even begun the great celebrations of life and the revivals of spirit that are underway. So stay, for the best is yet to come. Those birds are flying into our ships at this very moment to welcome our ships and guide us into the new land for their beds of paradise. Thanks a lot, dear friends.